We are slightly 1 minute ahead of schedule, but by the time I'm done, I think we'll be at 8. We are. We'll start with the roll call of the board, and I will note for everyone in the room that Ricky Brown will be here in about 5 minutes, so he will be joining us. I'm Kathy Murphy.
Ian Kinsey.
Kirk Sonneborn. Steve Thompson.
Thank you. All present and accounted for at the moment. Proof of notice was properly served for this meeting, and our first order of business is a public hearing on 250 Harrison Street project. Eric.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So we will read through the notice of the public hearing and then have an opportunity to hear from directly from the applicant and a representative on behalf of the applicant here for the project involving 250 Harrison Street LLC. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing pursuant to Section 859-A of the New York State General Municipal Law will be held by the City of Syracuse Industrial Development Agency on the 23rd day of July 2024 at 8 a.m. local time at 233 East Washington Street, Common Council Chambers, City Hall, Syracuse, New York, in connection with the following matter. 250 Harrison Street LLC, or an entity to be formed, requested the agency undertake a project designated for the preservation of the existing building, consisting of the acquisition of an interest in approximately 7,200 square feet of land, improved by approximately 36,684 square foot, 6-story building located at 600 Montgomery Street and Harrison Street in the city of Syracuse, New York, as well as the conversion and renovation of the building to include approximately 26,000 square feet on floors 2 through 5, containing approximately 35 residential units, consisting of approximately 5 studio units, 25 one-bedroom units, and 5 two-bedroom units, with a mix of 10% rent restricted as required per the City of Syracuse zoning ordinance for tenants earning approximately 80% of the area median income. Approximately 5,000 square feet, 5,184 square feet in the basement converted to amenity space and apartment storage space. Approximately 2,500 square feet of an approximate retail space on the first floor, which will be prepared for future tenancy. All of the foregoing with upgraded mechanicals, including but not limited to HVAC, plumbing, electrical, installation of a modern elevator, LED lighting, energy-efficient lighting, and wood flooring, and exterior work, including the installation of new windows to match the historical appearance and general cleaning of the minor masonry repair as needed. The project will also include the acquisition and installation in and around the land and facility of furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and the granting of certain financial assistance in the form of exemptions from real property tax, state and local sales and use tax, and mortgage recording tax, and the appointment of the company or its designee as an agent of the agency in connection with the acquisition, renovation, equipping, and completion of the project facility, and the lease of the land and facility by the agency pursuant to a lease agreement, and the acquisition of an interest in the equipment pursuant to a bill of sale from the company to the agency, and a sublease of the project facility back to the company pursuant to a sublease agreement. The company will be the initial owner and operator of the project facility, and the agency will, at the above stated time and place, hear all persons with views with respect to the proposed financial assistance to the company, the proposed owner and operator, the location of the project facility, and the nature of the project. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. As is our normal process for a public hearing, those that wish to speak in favor and those that wish to speak in opposition will be asked to come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. So, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this project? Please come forward, state your name and address. Sure. Paul?
Yes, that's great. Geez, it's tough. I should stand on my toes.
Should go down. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Reichel. I'm an attorney with Bond, Shenick & King, representing the developer, High Tide Capital. Dash extends his sincere regrets about not being able to get here because of the travel woes that are still lingering from last Friday. I can definitely appreciate that, being stuck in it myself. So here to speak just a little background about the project. This is an adaptive reuse of a historic building And in connection with the project, the developer, High Tide Capital, has successfully extended the Montgomery Street Columbus Circle Historic District to include this property and 10 others. And the hope, the expectation is that will benefit not only this project, but also others in the future. And so this project in particular is the redevelopment of the building that I know as being the one that has the Ale and Angus in it, in the ground floor. The project's not going to touch the Ale and Angus. We know that's retail. That's not part of the project at all. There's a 6-story building. The upper 5 floors will be converted into apartments, 35 apartments, a mix of studios, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom. The developer is aware of the zoning requirements to have historic, or rather, moderate, low-income set-asides, 10% of the set-asides for 80% of the AMI, so they're familiar with that. They're using VIP structures for the construction project, and VIP is very familiar with the agency's requirements for Syracuse resident hiring, et cetera, like that. So those requirements will be met as well. The retail space on the ground floor is yet to be determined. They're going to white box it. It'll just be built out, and then we'll see what happens there. The estimated cost is $13 million. And the developer's requesting a pilot agreement with real property tax exemptions, sales tax exemptions, and mortgage recording tax exemptions. I don't know, Jim Herr I guess he was delayed from VIP. Are there any questions regarding the project?
Any questions? Comments?
Paul, do you know their construction timeframe?
I do not. I know the approvals are moving along very quickly, so I think we'll be ready to go soon. Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Everybody good? Thanks, Paul.
Okay, you're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the project? Please come forward, state your name and address. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the project, please come forward, state your name and address. Last call. Hearing none. Hearing is closed. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval.
Minutes,
Yeah,
minutes, I'm sorry.
yeah, approval of the minutes from our last board meeting held on June 25th. Minutes were included in our packets. Are there any comments, changes, corrections? If none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dirk. Second. Ken, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. First item under new business is a review of the resolutions for 250 Harrison Street.
Good morning, everyone. As you just heard from the public hearing, the matter before you is 250 Harrison Street LLC. And the first first resolution in your agenda is the seeker resolution. The company submitted its EAF to the agency. The agency undertook an uncoordinated review, reviewed the EAF, and determined that this was an unlisted action and will not have any significant environmental impacts as a result of the project. And there is a negative declaration that is being requested and attached to your resolution.
Thank you, Sue. Is there a motion for a negative deck on the project?
So moved.
Thank you, Dirk.
Second.
Second, Ken. Any questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Next item, Sue.
The next resolution in your agenda for this project is the inducement resolution. As set out in the resolution, this seeks your approval to undertake the project. It authorizes the appointment of the company as your agent and the execution and delivery of the agency agreement that is attached as an exhibit to your resolution. That agreement governs the relationship between the company and the agency before you actually close on the lease transactional documents. The resolution also seeks the approval of state and local sales and use tax in an amount not to exceed $296,000 for the project. And it authorizes mortgage recording tax in the approximate amount of $67,500 for the project.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
Questions? Is there a motion? Motion made by Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Next resolution, Sue?
The next resolution is the pilot resolution, so, for 250 Harrison. This is a 15-year pilot abatement schedule. It conforms with your uniform tax exemption policy. As I always note for the record, the company will continue to pay 100% of real property tax as it sits now. The abatement schedule applies only to the improvements that they will be making as a result of this project. The abatement schedule may commence subsequent to the construction period. And the schedule is attached to your resolution, evidencing the 15 years and the payments to be made during that time. The total payments to be made to the agency over the course of the 15-year abatement period is just over $2.3 million.
Yep. Questions, comments? Motion.
I move it.
Thank you, Dirk.
Second.
Second, Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Final resolution, Sue?
The last resolution in the agenda with respect to the 250 Harrison project is the final approving resolution. This resolution authorizes the agency to undertake all of the lease transactional documents necessary to confer the approved benefits, and authorizes the chair, the vice chair, and the executive director to execute those documents.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Ken. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you all very much. Congratulations. Thank you, Paul. Our best to Dash, and I assume, Paul, you'll be in touch with Sue regarding the documents, and we'll need to know the construction timeline, as Sue indicated. Additionally, Dash will hear from our office. We will set up sort of a pre-construction meeting to help walk through our compliance requirements and so everyone's clear, and help answer any questions or facilitate any concerns anybody might have. So thanks, we look forward to the project. Yep, have a great day. Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, teaspoon.
Yes.
Wendy.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
In your agenda is a resolution for the TLSP CODA project. They are seeking the agency's participation in the refinancing to permanent financing on the project. What is a little bit unique about this is that they closed on their financing before SIDA approved all of the project. So they sought a mortgage reporting tax exemption, and it was provided to them, but they haven't used it yet. So they're going to be using, and only a portion of it, to refinance into perm. So they're not seeking any additional financial assistance. What they are seeking is your participation in the mortgage, which you are required to do, and which your documents anticipate that you will do.
Thank you. And I will note Wendy is present if we have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the request. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Thank you, Ken. Second?
Second.
Second, Dirk. Last call for questions, concerns?
I drove by this morning. It looks like they're almost done.
They are. August
Really close.
3rd, I hear, is the
Landscaping work.
the
to be
big
done
day.
on the surface,
Yeah.
but it looks great.
It does look great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. Next item on the agenda, good morning, Ricky. Is
While
a
you
re-
were gone, we volunteered you for a few things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, while you were gone. We have a big
Leave it
list
to
of
Kathy.
jobs. Is a request for the Anaplate Corporation regarding their current project. I believe Jim is here. Okay. Eric.
Okay, all right, good morning. So the request before us would be to increase the amount of sales tax exemption related to the project. For the board's recollection, this is for the Plate Corporation, which currently is underway with an expansion of their current facility located on Hiawatha Boulevard and Pulaski Street in the city's lakefront neighborhood. The project is, at this point, over 82% complete. Progress and movement on the project has been well underway. But one of the things that the project and the applicant and the company has discovered is that they are coming up on the full utilization of the original sales tax exemption amount for the project that was approved, which was approximately $270,000. Particularly, some of the things that they have found is that as part of their preparing to purchase furniture, fixtures, and equipment, as well as increases related to the project site work costs, those costs exceeded what they originally projected in their project application. And so what they have before the IDA and for our consideration would be a request to increase that sales tax exemption amount from what was originally $270,000 up to an amount of $305,000. The applicant has given us additional information as far as the justification for the cost increases, what ultimately led to these increases. And so the request before the board today would be to consider increasing that sales tax exemption amount. The sales tax exemption period will remain the same. That will take us through August. And so the project is ultimately confident that they will continue to meet the existing time frame, which takes us into later this year. So happy to discuss any questions. We also do have a representative from VIP Structures here today, which is the general contractor on the project.
Eric, were those regular market rate increases?
So one of the things that we had talked with the applicant about is that the project got off to a later start than originally anticipated. And so that was related to some site work related issues, and the project did completely get through all permitting and zoning approvals. But because of that delayed start and time frame, it did result in some of these cost increases. And then particularly, I think that the original costs they were predicting for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment have gone up. And so that ultimately is what led to this request.
And the request, just to put it in context, because I'm not good at math, is $35,000. So the delta between the two numbers.
Any other questions? Comments, concerns?
Can I just state for the record, nothing that Eric outlined or that you're being requested to do alters the seeker finding that you previously made?
Thank you. No questions, no comments. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Steve. Is there a second? Second, Ricky. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda, North Side Genesee.
Good morning, everyone. So this is the project up on East Genesee Street. It involves numerous parcels that they obtained. They demolished the structures. They have worked on, or they are working on re-subdivision of those parcels. But unfortunately, due to some market volatility and other influences, the financing that they had secured and lined up has fallen through. And so they are coming back asking simply that the agency extend your agency agreement. Now, recall your agency agreement is that agreement that's attached to each one of your inducement resolutions, and it governs the relationship between the parties between the time you adopt a project or induce a project until we close on the lease transaction. Those run for a year, giving every applicant a year to come and close with us. They're coming back and asking us to extend that for 1 year to allow them to put their financing pieces back in place. So I think it's an appropriate request, and it's before you today.
Would it not be appropriate for us to get some interim updates from them, like how they're doing in obtaining financing?
Certainly can ask for them to do that. I do believe that they stay in touch with Eric, but that we can formally request that as part of the approval process, and those reports can come directly to the board.
So do you think it's a year would be a normal extension for financing a project of this magnitude?
Yes, and I think, I don't necessarily think it will take them a year, but there are a million pieces to the game. And so I think for them to, especially in these markets, it takes longer than usual anyway. And the 1 year period is the standard period of our agency agreement. So to extend it for 1 year flows with the original term. And we have done it in the past. Not with them, but.
I also drove by it this morning, and it doesn't look as nice. I'm just curious to know whether they have responsibility for security. I mean, it's a great big open area now with a few seasons.
So they, as the owner, now I'm going to put on a different hat. As an owner of that property, they have to comply with codes. They have to, if there are problems at the property, they will be notified by either codes or, God forbid, the police, and they will have to address those concerns. But beyond that, they don't have obligations superior to any other owner of land simply because they have an application before us. Does that make sense?
This is over near where you are, Ken, right?
Yeah, right on Ash and Genesee there. Just basically now, just an open lot. Got some trees, but nothing else really there.
And the expenditures to date for demolition are all theirs.
All theirs.
If they are unable to secure financing, they're left with having spent what they spent on a piece of property or properties that look the way they do today.
Correct. And then they will either make a determination, I assume, to hold them for future investment opportunities if they arise and the financing frees up, or look to sell them. But that's a business decision.
I would ask, without needing to come to the board, that Eric, you stay on top of whether or not they get their financing, if you can help them, if there's something role for us to play to make sure that it's successful.
We'll request them to provide quarterly updates to Eric, and then he can report to the board.
I just also would note, they have been extremely responsive, and they are in communication with Eric and myself all the time regarding this project. So I wouldn't anticipate that it would stop now, but I understand the request for quarterly, and I certainly hope that we can assist them if needed in moving on to either finance the project and get it started, and/or whatever a potential new, different option may be. So Eric and I will make that clear to the applicant that we are ready to help in any way that we can. And again, I just wanted everybody to know they have been in constant communication with us.
I'm pretty sure if they don't went this far, they'll eventually come around, because they done already invested a ton of money.
They have, and time.
Right.
Yeah, and time.
And the approvals too,
Been a
just
while.
zoning, permanent, the project itself it would be considered shovel-ready. It really is ultimately subsequent to bank financing.
So they don't move it a long way, even though they might be having some financial problems right now, but I think it's on the right path.
I don't think, from my conversations, this was not on the developer side in any way. This was the bank. And this was clearly, this project was on track to start and to get done. And it hit the wall. You know?
Banks are a little tougher right now.
They're tough, yeah, it's tough. And so anyway, but we will get quarterly, and they will be, I'm sure, very responsive to that.
So we'll amend the resolution to make it conditioned upon the quarterly reports.
Right.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Ken. Second? Ricky, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda, 1153. Eric.
Okay, so we have a request and a new application that the agency has received, and so ultimately the request before you would be to authorize a public hearing for a new project from 1153 Owner LLC. This is for a redevelopment involving the building and property at 1153 West Fayette Street, which is located really on almost the cusp between the Tip Hill neighborhood, Tipperary Hill, and then the near west side. This is approximately 100,000 square foot facility and structure. It is a private development, a private-led development. And ultimately, this is a request that will ultimately result in a new office commercial use, as well as a public safety use involving the city of Syracuse as a tenant that is ultimately authorized a 19-year lease to be able to use the facility as part of a replacement and relocation of existing operations within the city's public safety building, which for many years has been undergoing significant decline. This would be a brand new facility that would be able to use and support those departments. And so we've been having direct conversations, and we'll continue a dialogue as well with the City of Syracuse Police Department, as well as the Fire Department. In terms of the redevelopment itself, it is approximately a $31 million redevelopment project. And so ultimately, the request before us would be for sales tax exemption, mortgage recording tax, and then the project is requesting a pilot for consideration as well. But one of the things we wanted to do was we included a copy of the application. The information has been shared. This is just to authorize the public hearing, and then subsequently, the idea would be in August, we would have the opportunity to actually hold the public hearing and then be able to further discuss the project.
Thank you, Eric. The owner applicant is Tim Lynn, who is also present. Should we have any additional questions or thoughts or concerns? As Eric said, the resolution before us is a request to authorize the public hearing at our August meeting. I am confident that this will be reviewed more fully at a finance committee meeting sometime before that public hearing takes place. However, if there are any questions, we're happy to take them. If not, is there a motion to authorize the hearing? Motion made by Ricky, second? Ken, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, chimes.
All right, so this would be a second request for a public hearing for consideration and a public hearing that would be held at a future meeting. The application comes to us from Chimes Syracuse LLC involving a well-known property within downtown Syracuse known as the Chimes Building located at 500 South Salina Street. The redevelopment is being planned that would involve adaptive reuse of the existing building into 152 residential units. This would be a combination of affordable housing, several of which will be funded with the city's home program at the 60% of area median income level, as well as another third of the units or so that would be funded more in the workforce housing range between 80% and 100% of AMI, and then another third that will be market rate units. So mixed income project with a combination and range of different income levels. The total redevelopment of the project is approximately $46 million, and so the project is seeking mortgage recording tax, sales tax, as well as a pilot that we are continuing to evaluate and assess at this time. In a similar vein to the project we just discussed, we'd have the opportunity to authorize the public hearing today, have the chance to have further discussion and dialogue with the applicant, and be able to consider this at a future meeting, likely in August.
Thank you.
Did Eric, you said the second, did they come to us once before to Chimes Building?
What I was referring to is we just had you just authorized a public hearing request for
for another
1153.
But I'm asking, did they come before? Were the Chimes
No.
Building, or was it on the?
Not that I recall. Do
Okay.
you recall?
You mean long ago, or?
Well, no, within the last 5 years, say.
There was a partial conversion of a couple of floors into residential apartments, but the agency, SIDA, was not involved at the time with that project. So, yep.
Eric, I asked, this is being presented by an LLC. The media has reported this as a project of the Allen Family Foundation.
Correct.
Yep. Do you know, or do we need to wait for the public hearing to ask what the?
No,
is this
I can.
private development?
I'm
or-
happy to just share kind of a basic introduction. We do have a representative from the project if there's further questions. So this is an entity that has been created by the Allen Family Foundation. Is technically Chimes Syracuse LLC is separate from the foundation itself, but that entity is being fully supported, and the project itself is being led by staff that are a part of the Allen Family Foundation team. It's a very similar nature to when the Salt City Market was redeveloped. That was ultimately done by an entity called SURUP, the Syracuse Urban Partnership, that the agency was involved with. So the Allen Family Foundation is directly supporting and is behind the project, but it is a separate entity. It's just their staff and their technical expertise that's helping lead the redevelopment.
And the ownership, do you know who the members are, or?
I would.
I'm asking the wrong question at this time.
Yeah.
It will be in the application. It says on the application, I just don't have it with me, so I can't tell you the percentage.
If you leave, we can talk about you.
You can, yes.
I guess it
Ken, do
it
not
can wait.
have it. You were my friend first.
Okay, the C
It can wait for the public hearing.
attached org chart, which I can't find.
What I would just know, included within the application, the applicant does provide an org chart. That organizational chart is able to kind of give much more explicit detail on the ownership structure.
just found a digital copy of it.
Okay.
It's at the very end, Dirk. So. Yep. Oh. Of course he does.
Tim's
All right.
involved in all of it.
Please
Let's
state
go.
your name and address for the record.
Timothy Lynn, counsel for Syracuse LLC. My office is at 449 South Salina Street. The Syracuse LLC owns the real property. They purchased it maybe a year ago, and the sole member of Chimes, it's not simple, but ultimately the member is Seed Syracuse Inc., which is a New York State not-for-profit corporation that I would fairly say is affiliated with the Allen Foundation and with Syrup. It's kind of the same team you saw at Salt City Market. Once we get to closing, it's going to be a historic rehab, and I think I gave you 2 charts for what the ownership is now and what it will be.
Our teacher, but they come up sideways in our,
Yeah, they did.
Sorry,
so
And
it's,
you can't get it to work.
right, it's hard for us. We're limited.
I always rotate the pages, but I didn't scan it, so sorry. You should take back your show-off comment.
Right, exactly.
So it's also, there's a new not-for-profit that's doing it, the Seed Syracuse. It's not new, but it's independent of Syrup, but they're all kind of related. So.
Thanks, Tim. Okay. I rotated it if you need to see it. Got it? Good. And again, as everyone has stated, we will be able to explore that in more detail at the Finance Committee when we have all of the completed parts together.
I'd move for a public hearing.
Thank you. Second, Ricky. No one, we don't need me. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Tim. Next item on the agenda is a planning and feasibility grant application for the CFA. Eric.
Right, so the request is right now, New York State every year, especially during the months of June and July, has their consolidated funding application period open, which is a grant opportunity for several different state departments. We have a number of different applications that the city, particularly our business development team, is working on. But one of them that we've identified that we think is a real opportunity is the Empire State Development Planning and Feasibility Study Program. Typically can fund for up to $100,000 for different feasibility studies, market studies, and analysis. And so what we wanted, the opportunity and the request before the board, would be to actually revisit the commercial corridor study that the agency had funded and undertaken with Camoin Associates back in 2019. Now, one of the primary reasons why we'd like to be able to revisit and completely update this analysis is that it was all pre-COVID, it was before the pandemic, and as just our entire landscape has shifted economically and within business corridors, we'd like the ability to really be equipped and empowered with that market data to continue to use this corridor strategy the city's been redeveloping. So as you think about corridors like North Salina Street or South Salina Street or Burnett Ave and James Street in Eastwood, there's a number of different corridors that we've really tried to place emphasis on. And so this information and updating it, which at this point is approximately 5 years old, we really believe would be a great opportunity. Now, this program funds for up to $100,000 as a maximum. There is a match component required. So what we are asking for is an amount not to exceed from the agency to help provide that match portion in the event that we're successful. So this funding would only be used if we're successful with this grant funding, but the match would be an amount not to exceed $50,000. There's also a component of staff time that does count towards the match as well. So there would be staff time as part of leading this effort and undertaking this commercial corridor study. But ultimately, the request would be we would apply. Applications are due by the end of July, and then ultimately we would find out later this year if the agency was successful. But happy to take any questions.
Would this be explicit to any corridors in particular or open over the entire?
It's a good question. What we had done back in 2019 was that we had identified 10 commercial corridors. We had started with a South Ave focus study that was really successful. What we wanted to do is then we mimicked that approach and we did it with an additional 9 corridors. And so those corridors have really been part of the city's Resurgent Neighborhoods Initiative is what we call that. So at the same time that we're building and constructing new homes in the city, We're also supporting corridors that are located along these areas. So we're, at this point in time, I think likely what we would want to do is probably do a very similar structure to the 10 business corridors that we had already looked at, because what we want to have is a side-by-side comparison between pre-COVID and post-COVID data. That being said, we'll likely be revisiting and looking at the boundaries of what those corridors entailed. And the other thing I would just add is that this is really a major partnership opportunity for the city of Syracuse. And so within our neighborhood and business development department, we have been putting greater capacity into corridor planning, corridor engagement, and really supporting businesses and vacant storefronts and things like that from an economic development perspective. This study is one of the tools that we used 5 years ago, and we'd like the ability to update and refresh that data to continue our strategy.
Will be immensely helpful, just in terms of the changes that you've seen along several of those corridors as opposed to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
There's been like monumental change along some of them, but from a planning perspective and a neighborhood perspective, I think it would be very helpful for some residents and other folks that have interest in continuing to build along the corridor.
It's a great point. I know I talked about the pre and post-COVID, but you're absolutely right. A tremendous amount of change has taken place in a lot of these corridors, and so I think that there's also just a need to really look at what's the direction these areas are going in. And we were able to successfully achieve a number of the different recommended action items from the first report, so we want to be able to really take a look at where do we go from here and what's the city strategy going forward.
Move authorization.
Thank you. Second, Ricky. Last call for any questions. Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Eric. I would entertain a motion for the board to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing potential disposition of real estate. Thank you, Ricky. Second. Steve, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. I would say for the audience, we do not intend to carry out any further business upon return back to our regular session, except to adjourn. So for those who may be waiting for something breathtaking to happen, not today. Thank you.
Let's go to that quick.
Okay. Now,
If you stay, I'll stay.
There's a motion on the table for a new RFP for council. Do we have a motion to adjourn? I know. Ken is with Eric. They're going to be a while. I don't think so. There's still a
There's quorum,
quorum
right?
to
Yeah.
adjourn.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ricky. Steve, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you all.
See you next time.